It was a typical Tuesday afternoon when I met Fabian at Trader Joe's. I was reaching for the last bag of organic kettle corn, and so was he. Our hands brushed, we both laughed, and I swear, time stopped for a moment. That moment, that innocent reach for a snack, turned into a whirlwind romance, and then a nightmare. It all came crashing down around me, shattering my trust and leaving me questioning everything I thought I knew. I should have seen the red flags sooner. I'll never forget the day I discovered the truth. Hi everyone, I'm Eleanor, and I'm sharing my story today because I hope it helps someone else avoid the same pain. If you're watching this, please leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. It helps to know I'm not alone. Fabian was charming, effortlessly so. He had a way of making me feel like I was the only woman in the world.
He was funny, intelligent, and seemed genuinely interested in everything I had to say. We talked for hours that day at Trader Joe's, then went for coffee, then dinner. It felt like something out of a movie. Now, I need to give you some background. I'm a software engineer, and I've worked hard to get where I am. My parents, Susan and David, have always been incredibly supportive, both emotionally and financially. They helped me with my college tuition and even assisted with the down payment on my apartment. I am eternally grateful for their help. It's not that I couldn't afford it on my own, but my parents have always been generous with me. Fabian knew all of this. He knew about my job, my parents, and their financial support. I thought I was being open and honest, sharing my life with someone I was falling in love with. Looking back, I realize I was painting a target on my back.
Things moved quickly. Within a few weeks, Fabian was practically living at my apartment. It felt natural, exciting. I was head over heels. And then he officially moved in. That's when things started to get strange. It started subtly. His parents, Margaret and Richard, began visiting more often. They were always overly complimentary, not to me, but to my apartment and my lifestyle. "Oh, Eleanor, you have such a lovely place," Margaret would say, her eyes gleaming as she scanned my living room. "It's so, well, put together. Fabian is so lucky to have found you." Richard was no different. He would pat Fabian on the back and say things like, "Son, you really landed on your feet with this one. Eleanor has a great job, a great life." Their comments made me uneasy, but I brushed them off. I told myself I was being paranoid. They were just being nice, right? Then came the comments about my job and my parents. Fabian started making little remarks, almost like tests. "You know, your dad seems to have a lot of connections," he said one evening as we were watching TV. "He could probably get me a job at his company if he wanted to." I laughed it off. "Fabian, you have a great job. You don't need my dad's help. He was a freelance graphic designer and made good money." He shrugged. "Just saying it would be nice to work somewhere with a little more stability." Another time, he asked about the money my parents had given me for my apartment. "So, that was a pretty generous gift," he said casually. "Do they just give you money whenever you need it?" I felt a knot form in my stomach. No, of course not. It was a one-time thing. They just wanted to help me get started.
The questions and comments continued, each one chipping away at my sense of security. He started asking about my savings, my investments, and even my inheritance. It felt like an interrogation, not a conversation. I started confiding in my best friend, Claire. "I don't know, Claire," I said over coffee one afternoon. "It just feels like Fabian is more interested in my money than he is in me." Claire frowned. "That's a red flag, Eleanor. A big one. You need to be careful." I knew she was right, but I didn't want to believe it. I loved Fabian. Or, at least, I thought I did. Then came the turning point. My company was having its annual holiday party. A black tie affair at a fancy hotel downtown. I was excited to take Fabian. It was a chance to show him off to my colleagues and for him to see me in my element. The party was in full swing. I was chatting with a client when I noticed Fabian talking to one of my coworkers, Sarah. I didn't think anything of it at first. But then I saw him lean in close, whispering something in her ear. Sarah's eyes widened, and she looked at me with a mixture of pity and concern. I excused myself from my conversation and walked over to them. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Fabian straightened up, a guilty look on his face. "Yeah, everything's fine. Sarah was just asking about my work." Sarah, however, looked uncomfortable. "Actually, Eleanor," she said hesitantly, "Fabian was just telling me about his plans for the future. He mentioned something about needing to secure his financial stability and that you were the key to that." My heart dropped. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I could barely breathe. Fabian's face turned red.
"Sarah, you're misunderstanding," he stammered. "Am I?" Sarah replied, raising an eyebrow, because it sounded pretty clear to me. I didn't say a word. I just stared at Fabian, waiting for him to explain, but he couldn't. He knew he had been caught. The rest of the night was a blur. I barely spoke to Fabian. I was too numb, too hurt. I just wanted to go home and crawl into bed. The next morning, I knew I had to confront him. I waited until he was finished with breakfast and then sat him down at the kitchen table. "We need to talk," I said, my voice trembling. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. "Eleanor, please let me explain." "Explain what, Fabian?" I said, my voice rising. "Explain how you've been using me? Explain how you've been manipulating me for my money?" He sighed. "It's not like that, Eleanor," he said weakly. "Then what is it like, Fabian?" I demanded. "Tell me the truth." He hesitated for a moment, then finally, the truth came spilling out. He admitted that he had been attracted to me initially, but that he had also seen me as an opportunity. He admitted that his parents had been encouraging him to pursue me, knowing about my family's wealth. He admitted that he had been planning to leave me after he had secured his financial stability. I was devastated. I felt like everything I had believed in was a lie. The man I thought I loved, the man I had opened my heart and my home to, was nothing more than a con artist. "I can't believe you," I said, tears streaming down my face. "How could you do this to me?" "I'm sorry, Eleanor," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I really am." "Sorry isn't good enough, Fabian," I said, standing up. "You need to leave. Now." He didn't argue. He packed his bags and left, without another word.
After he left, I felt completely lost. I didn't know what to do. I was angry, hurt, and humiliated. I felt like I had been betrayed in the worst possible way. I knew I needed to talk to my parents. I called them and told them everything. They were shocked and furious. They couldn't believe that someone would do something so cruel and calculated. "Eleanor, honey, you need to get rid of him," my mom said, her voice filled with concern. "He's dangerous." "I know, Mom," I said. "But how?" My dad, ever the strategist, jumped in. "We'll help you, Eleanor. We'll figure something out." And that's exactly what we did. We devised a plan to remove Fabian from my life and to protect myself from any further harm. The first thing we did was change the locks on my apartment. I also contacted my landlord and explained the situation. Thankfully, they were understanding and agreed to change the lease, removing Fabian's name from it. Next, we decided to inform Fabian's parents of his actions. I knew it would be awkward and uncomfortable, but I felt like they deserved to know the truth about their son. My parents and I drove to their house and sat them down in their living room. I told them everything, from the initial meeting at Trader Joe's to the confession at my apartment. They were visibly shocked. "We had no idea," Margaret said, her voice trembling. "We're so sorry, Eleanor. We would never condone such behavior." Richard, however, was silent. He just sat there, his face red with anger and embarrassment. "There's one more thing," my dad said, his voice firm. "Fabian's sister Jennifer works for me at my company." Jennifer was a mid-level manager. "Given what has happened with Fabian and Eleanor, we will have to review her employment." Margaret gasped. "David, please don't do that. Jennifer had nothing to do with this." "I understand that," my dad said, "but we need to ensure that there are no conflicts of interest and that our employees are acting with integrity." I felt a pang of guilt for Jennifer. She was innocent in all of this. But I also knew that my dad was right. He had to protect his company and his family. After we left Fabian's parents' house, I felt a sense of relief. I had taken the first steps toward reclaiming my life. But the nightmare wasn't over yet. The next day, Fabian started texting me. He was apologetic at first, begging me to forgive him. He said he was sorry for everything he had done and that he still loved me. I didn't respond. I knew that anything I said would just be used against me. Then, the texts turned angry. He accused me of ruining his life. He said I was a heartless, selfish woman who didn't care about anyone but herself. I still didn't respond. Then, the voicemail started. He would leave long, rambling messages, alternating between apologies and threats. He would cry, he would scream, he would plead. I blocked his number, but he just called from a different one. He was relentless. The harassment escalated. He started gaslighting my friends, calling them and telling them lies about me. He told them that I was crazy, that I was unstable, that I was making things up. Some of my friends believed him. They started distancing themselves from me, unsure of what to believe. Then he started showing up at my apartment building. He would stand outside, staring up at my window. He would buzz my neighbors, pretending to be a delivery person.
One night, he even showed up at my neighbor's door, claiming that he needed to borrow some sugar. My neighbor, a kind elderly woman named Mrs. Davis, recognized him from my description and slammed the door in his face. That was the last straw. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't live like this anymore. I went to the police and filed a restraining order against Fabian. The judge granted it, ordering him to stay at least 100 yards away from me, my home, and my workplace. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought that the restraining order would protect me. I was wrong. A few days later, I came home from work to find my apartment door ajar. My heart leaped into my throat. I cautiously pushed the door open and stepped inside. The apartment was a mess. Furniture was overturned, drawers were pulled open, and clothes were scattered everywhere. Fabian was there, standing in the middle of my living room, his eyes wild and bloodshot. "Fabian, what are you doing here?" I screamed. He didn't answer. He just lunged at me, grabbing my arm and pulling me close. "I love you, Alana," he said, his voice raspy. "I can't live without you." I struggled to break free, but he was too strong. He held me tight, his grip like iron. "Let me go, Fabian," I yelled. "You're hurting me." Finally, I managed to kick him in the shin. He cried out in pain and released me. I ran out of the apartment and down the stairs, screaming for help. The police arrived quickly and arrested Fabian for breaking into my apartment and violating the restraining order. He was taken to jail, and I finally felt like I could breathe again. But the relief was short-lived. A few days later, I received a call from the police. Fabian had been released on bail. He was wearing an ankle monitor, but he was free to go. I was terrified. I knew that he would come after me again. I knew that he wouldn't stop until he had me back, or until he had destroyed me completely. I went to stay with my parents. I couldn't be alone in my apartment. I was too scared. A week later, I received another call from the police. Fabian had cut off his ankle monitor and disappeared. They were searching for him, but they had no idea where he was. I was living in a nightmare. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, afraid that Fabian would appear at any moment. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't function. The police advised me to stay hidden at my parents' house. They said it was the safest place for me. So that's where I am now, hiding in my childhood bedroom, waiting for the nightmare to end. I am grappling with the betrayal, the uncertainty, and the fear that has consumed my life. I keep replaying everything in my head, wondering what I could have done differently, what signs I missed. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if Fabian will ever be caught. I don't know if I will ever feel safe again. But I do know one thing. I am a survivor. I am stronger than I think, and I will get through this. He thought he could take advantage of me, destroy my life. He thought he could win. But he underestimated me. He messed with the wrong woman. And I will come out of this stronger than ever. If you've enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel for more such stories.